Hello there, and welcome to the Dylan with Life podcast. I am Dylan, and this is me, Dylan with Life. This is the first episode and the introduction to the first episode of the podcast, so there's going to be a lot of feeling out phases for sure. Basically, the podcast is just going to be about all aspects of life and me dealing with them and how you're dealing with them. Growing older, relationships, career, mental health, philosophy, current events, music, sports, the future, the past, and everything in between, all while mixing in humor, authenticity, and a bit of myself. So hopefully I can help you deal with life. Hopefully you can help me deal with life, and this will be us dealing with life. So without further ado, let's get into it.
I used to think if I couldn't find hope, I should just let it all go. I used to think if I couldn't make dreams come true, I should just let them all go. When life seems impossible, look from a new angle, change just one little thing. When life feels intolerable, find your true source of love. Concentrate, focus on love. Center now, focus on love.
Here we go. This is it. This is the meat and potatoes part of the first episode of the Dylan with Life podcast. This is something that I've been wanting to do for quite a long time now, going back years. It started when I found the Ricky Gervais podcast, his XFM radio show with Steve Merchant, Carl Pilkington, and that was probably 10 years ago that I found that, and I still listen to them to this day. More recently, Joe Rogan's podcast has got me wanting to start my own. Theo Vaughn's podcast is what I listen to most. There's tons of great podcasts out there, and I want to be contributing to that group and that dynamic and creating something of my own, putting it out there and seeing if anybody enjoys it, and if they do, then great. Then we can work on that and see where it goes. This is it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about whatever comes to our minds. We're going to have maybe a few segments, reoccurring things that we'll find along the way, and then we'll go from there. I know that I'm going to be doing recommendations for you guys, so stay tuned later in the episode. I'm going to do a movie recommendation, I think, this time. I'd also love to do an email segment, so if you could email in questions or on the social medias, whatever way that you partake in that, send me some questions or just things that you're going through. It doesn't even have to be questions. Just give me a story, give me something that's going on in your life that I can react to, and we can talk about that. What's on my mind? I found out recently that one of my closest friends is a psychopath, so that's kind of something. We were all hanging out together, and he decided to tell us that he cut the head off of a bird with some garden shears, which, fuck, where do you start, right? He's trying to say that his cat caught it and the thing was badly hurt and could see its heart through its little feathers and it was going to die anyway. But it's like, I feel there's better, more humane, more non-psychopathic ways of doing that. But instead he reached for the scissors and brought it inside in his bed and sort of just decapitated it right there. And the smile on his face when he was telling this story, it's like, I got to try to get him on a list or something, notify the proper authorities, make sure that no animals go missing in his area, because that's a gateway drug, right? Cutting off the head of a bird. That's a real gateway. From there you move to like rabbit, cat, dog, toddler, preteen, teen. Who knows from there, gorilla. Things can get out of hand pretty quickly when you're doing that. So keeping an eye on him. Definitely not going to be asking him to cat sit for me. That's probably not safe. Don't know what's going to happen there. Definitely not going to get a pet bird or get him a pet bird, because that would just go to waste. Rip to that bird. Also, I want to start using rip in like a more casual sense. Like if I'm chatting with somebody, we're texting or if we're just talking or whatever on the phone, it's late at night and they're off to bed, I would just want to be like, well, okay, rip, rest in peace. Have a good sleep sort of thing. So I'm definitely going to make that a thing. I don't think it needs to be as heavy as it is right now. Just, rest in peace. Have a peaceful rest. That's better than not having a restful peace, And then maybe we'll find something else that we can say when somebody passes away that will be a little more significant, because I feel like RIP has just lost its value. Somebody dies and it's just everybody just throws a rip out there. So if we're just throwing it around willy-nilly anyway, then why don't we use it for, actual rest instead of death? Because let's be real, nobody is resting peacefully these days. Everybody's got anxiety out the ass and worrying about this and stressing about this, and it would be nice to have a peaceful rest. I'll tell you right now, I haven't rested in peace in a while. I did do a float tank a couple months ago. Finally, first time, something I've been wanting to do for a while, and it was amazing. I definitely was able to rip for sure. That was pretty much all it was. I didn't have anything weird or crazy happen, but it was a very, very relaxing time, which was really all I was looking for out of it. So that's perfect. Would highly recommend it if you just need to unwind. It was great. You lie there, no distractions, no phones. You're locked in for 2 hours. You're not hearing anything. You're not seeing anything. You're not feeling anything. You're just there, just relaxing. And I'm somebody that deals with anxiety quite a bit, so I was definitely anxious getting in there. Was my mind gonna shut up? Was I gonna worry about the things that I always worry about when I, turn the lights off and I'm just sitting there in bed trying to go to sleep? But that wasn't the case there. I don't know if it was because I, went in with the right mindset. That definitely doesn't happen when I try to go to sleep. I think it was set up to be really relaxing. So that was great, and I'm going to be definitely doing that again. I would recommend for anybody that just needs to rip. I feel like that's kind of a problem with the way that the classic work week is set up right now, where everybody's working Monday to Friday and they've got Saturday, Sunday off, and everybody wants to do something on their days off. And so Saturday, Sunday, the days that, should be used for resting, when Monday to Friday you're going to work 8 hours and maybe you're going to school or you've got assignments or other work to do outside of those hours and there's no real time to rest and relax. And then bam, you hit your Friday night, you're not resting then, you're going pretty hard at it usually, and then Saturday's a throwaway day, you're trying to get things in, it's your only day off, so you're trying to do this and trying to do that. It does not leave enough time to actually just relax, veg out, not do much. And I know that's going to be different for different people. People are going to want to do different things, but for me, definitely my current setup is my weekends Tuesday, Wednesday, which is obviously vastly different than the people that I usually spend my time with or that I would choose to spend my time with. But basically that allows me to have days where it's like there's no pressure on a Tuesday or Wednesday for me to get up and go out and do something and do this. If everybody had the day off and all my friends were going out, going on a hike or going over here or going to the brewery or doing this or doing that, then it's like, fuck, okay, I guess I better get up and do something. But it's nice to have those days in the middle of the week off where I can just relax. I think it's a lot more mentally healthy than wearing yourself down. The weekends obviously seem nice, they seem good, but they're probably just as taxing, just in a better way. I would really love to see more people able to work the 4/10s instead of 5/8s. I think that would help a lot of people getting a whole extra day off. Then at least, you've got a day to get this in if you want to do that, or you got a day to do this. And then you're still going to have one day left over. It's like, you know what? I do just want to relax and rip here. I did that for a little bit and it was exactly what I wanted, exactly what I expected to. And ever since then, I've been trying at every job to see if I can secure that kind of work. And it's not easy, obviously, in a lot of different places, but if you can, I'm sure you're happy with it. I've never met somebody that worked 4/10s and wasn't happy with doing it. An extra 2 hours a day each day doesn't seem like much when it's tacked at the end or the start. And then the whole nother day off is so big when you only get 2 of them a week anyway. With that extra time, you could, get a house plant or 2. Feel like when you're working so much, and this is obviously, there's people that can keep houseplants alive, and there's obviously people that can't keep houseplants alive. I feel if you're the type of person that can't keep a houseplant alive, an extra day off would help you in that vein. I think you'd be able to at least keep them for an extra couple weeks. I also think that if you are having a hard time keeping houseplants alive and you've only got like 1 or 2 and then it dies after however long you have it, and then you go, fuck, why can't I keep a fucking houseplant alive? So you go and get another one and then it dies after a little while. It's like, I think what you need to do is get like 6 houseplants. That's what I'm at right now. And they're all doing so well. Whereas before I'd have like 1, maybe 2, forget to water them. They're in different parts of the house. I only see them every now and then. They're off my mind, working too much, forget to water them. Fucking 3 weeks later, here we are, dead plants. But when I've got 6 of these guys around, it's hard I can't go in a room or walk around without seeing them. I'm like, oh yeah, how's they doing? It's easier to check up on them. More, the opposite of out of sight, out of mind. They're in your sight, they're in your mind. And I think that's plant life hack right there. If you want to keep plants alive, just get a bunch. And then also it's like, if they start dying, nobody's even going to notice because you've got so many. You could just replace them quickly and they won't be like, is that a new plant? They won't know. So it's like, you can just keep killing them and replacing them and it'll look just the way it did before. I've got a friend right now. We actually bought matching houseplants. It was super cute. They are called a Persian shield plant. And I suggest you Google them because the pictures of them, they look crazy. Just like vibrant neon purple on dark green leaves. Really cool plants. But we got them at the same time and mine's doing pretty good. Again, it joined my little host here. So I was already trained. He was maybe not so well trained. And he sent me a picture today and this poor plant, it looks to sort of steal what he said this plant is a reflection of me. And so yeah, I guess it sort of looks like how he's dealing with things. And I think that's another thing too. I don't know many people that don't have their lives together that can keep plants. I feel like if you don't have your life together or you're going through some shit, your plants are going to go through that as well. I think on the other side, if you do have your shit together, if you are organizing or this and that and you're doing well, then I think your plants are going to do well. That's an interesting about having obviously living things in your house. They are a reflection of you. Same with pets, If you're taking care of your pets and everything's clean and everything's good, that's probably a reflection of yourself. Whereas if they're not doing so well, then you're probably not doing so well either. Let me tell you, it feels nice to finally be doing this. A lot of times, as I mentioned in the intro maybe, that I've been thinking about doing a podcast for the longest time, for years and years. And I've tried once a little sports thing with a friend, but didn't really take off and it didn't get done. And so many different things in my life I talk about wanting to do. I talk about wanting to start going to the gym. I talk about wanting to start yoga. And I talk about wanting to start a podcast. And I talk about wanting to pick up a different hobby or picking up a side job that's more in a field that I'm interested in, and I never do them. I go through the planning, I pick the gym and I pick the pass that I'm going to get, or I pick the yoga studio and I know which classes I'm going to go to, or, I pick my topic for the podcast and I get an idea down and I work on this, and then what ends up happening from there is I start talking to friends about it. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to join this gym. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to get this tattoo. I've been thinking about, no, I'm going to get this tattoo. And then there's some sort of positive reinforcement that I get from telling people that I'm going to do things, that it's no longer worth the effort of actually going through and doing it because I feel like I've already got something for it. And then that cycle just continues and years go by and I haven't done those things and I still want to. And I'm obviously not fulfilled in the way that I would have had I done them. But it's that quick, instantaneous, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And people are like, oh, nice. That's cool. That's awesome. And that feels good. And then I don't end up doing it. I end up doing the same thing that I've been doing the whole time and nothing really changes. I'm reading a book right now called Sapiens, which you've probably heard about, by Yuval Noah Harari, A Brief History of Mankind. It's a great, great book. I'm in the middle of it still right now, but the other day I read the line, "Consistency is the playground of dull minds." And since I've read that, that's just been running through my head. If you've got a life filled with consistency, it doesn't mean you have a dull mind. It also definitely doesn't mean you don't. But what it means, or at least what I interpret it to mean, is that if you are not experiencing new things or being presented new challenges, that your brain will get bored. It'll get overweight if you don't work it out. That's sort of the predicament or the place that I've been in. I like to find a routine and get comfortable in it, and then just I get lazy. I get content with consistency, even though there's all these different things that I know I want to do and I know I want to try, yet here I am, months go by and it's like, oh, okay, it's October now. When did that happen? Why has nothing changed over the last few months? So it's nice to finally be taking a step. That's something that I want to be definitely helping other people with. Email, do whatever. Let me know what it is that you're wanting to do, that you haven't done, something that you've been talking about for a long time, but for whatever reason, you just don't go full on it. And it just ends up sitting in the back of your mind until, you get that other urge or that other surge for it. And you start thinking about it again, getting closer and closer. And then you fall off of it. It goes away again and then it pops up again later. I feel there's a lot of people that are that way. At least I know I'm definitely that way. And it's frustrating because this life moves fast. And there's no reason to waste it not doing the things that you know you want to do. It seems so silly. I fight with myself so much about it. It's like, I know that I want to do these things. I know that they'll bring me joy. I know that they'll make me a happier person. I know this, but I can't seem to get over the edge of actually doing it and starting it. Once I start these things, there's been different examples in the past. As soon as I start them, it's like, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this the whole time? Why didn't I do this 3 years ago when I knew I wanted to start this? Obviously, there's no problem. Better late than never. But God, just do it. Just go for it. Because you have one life, no idea where it's going to end up. And really, it could end up anywhere. You could end up being exactly what you want to be, even if you think that's a crazy dream at this point, even if it seems like an impossible goal or something that's unattainable or something that's not going to happen. I can guarantee you, obviously, it's not going to happen if you don't even go for it. I like to think of what they've been talking about in quantum physics recently with the idea of infinite timelines and every possibility being played out in some way or another, or some universe or some multiverse of this whole thing. And that means that, for me, there's a version of me somewhere. There has to be. If every single possible timeline is being played out, then there's a version of me that starts this podcast today, like I am, does the first episode exactly this way, and in 10 years is the biggest podcast in the world. There's also versions, obviously, where all those things, where that doesn't happen and it goes completely different ways and varying degrees in between there. But the way that I see it is, if you want to achieve something, no matter how crazy it seems or how far off it is, just go for it. Because if that is true, if there's infinite timelines, then your timeline's going to end up somewhere. And it could end up in any of these. But if you keep making little decisions that put yourself closer and closer and closer to what your actual desired outcome is, then you could get there. There's no reason that you couldn't. You have no idea what's going to happen. So why not just go for it? You're really going to waste this life because you want to feel safe, or you're scared of the risk instead of just going for it and potentially living the best, most fulfilled life that you could? I guess that's what I'm trying to do right now, is put myself and make the decisions that I want to make. Start doing the things that I want to do. I was working a job a couple years ago that was completely a decision just for money. That's all it was. I didn't love it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I left a job that I liked more at the time, but I knew this was going to be better money. And I was in, my early mid-20s, and it was like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Do this, get the money, make the money, buy the things, be happy, right? That's how it works. I tried it for a couple years, and it was the complete opposite of what I wanted it to be. And it was what all my fears were. I wasn't happy, and I started dreading going to work, I started dreading going to sleep, because I knew going to sleep meant I had to wake up, which meant I had to go to work. So, there was no rip there for me. No rip at all. And now, since I've made that decision or made that change from that, I'm much happier. Still not ripping the way that I would like to, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. And it's like, had I stayed on that path, sure, there's still ways that it all works out, even whatever my desired goal or desired end of this life is. There's still going to be a timeline somewhere where it all still works out anyway. But I'd rather try to fast track that, try to put myself on, enter so many more different timelines where it just goes and it splits up different ways, aside from that one where it's like, no, I did something I hated for 30 years and then snap. It just all came together a year after that and I lived happily ever after. I'd rather be on the timeline where I started it earlier, started to achieve it more organically and it came together. I think that's more likely. Even though I know if they're infinite, that every single thing happens, I think there is still more of a likelihood of certain things happening by going towards them instead of staying away and then having them just pop up. Another thing that I'm excited about this podcast for is I think it's going to serve as a good reference if I start to lose my mind. Instead of keeping a journal or a diary or something like that, there's going to be like lots of audio out here. See how I'm talking, my speech, what I'm enunciating, this and that. And if I start to lose my mind, then I'm going to be able to look back and be like, oh, that's how I used to sound. Or more realistically, my loved ones will be able to look back and be like, see, that's when he still had it. And also, if I were to disappear or pass away suddenly, I guess a podcast is a nice thing for family and friends to have afterwards. If you're thinking of starting something like that, it'd be nice to leave something for them. I've got friends that I've lost and different things that have happened where I wish I had a database of things where I could sit down and feel like I'm with them. I know that podcasting obviously has been growing and growing and growing more and more. And it even seems like the boat is past, but I think that it's just starting now. I think they're going to become more accessible, easier to create, and I think everybody's going to start having one. I think it's the next social media. Instead of a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram where, you can have your pictures or you can have your thoughts or you can have your this, I think everybody's going to have their own podcast. Maybe they'll be shorter bites, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, more things. But I think the future of social media is going to be auditory and it's going to be one where we're all just on there. You can check each other's things out. It's easier to go viral when everybody's looking for this podcast and that podcast and everybody's doing this and that. Definitely flood the market. It'll be harder to find, but you'll find it's like music now, but instead of sort of that musical creativity, it's a connection with people. You're really getting to know the person. You get to know a singer or where they're at or an artist through their music or even through their drawings or any kind of artist. I think with a podcaster, not that it's not art, but it's just them. And you really get to learn who they are and build a deeper connection with them than you would through music or art where they could be playing different sort of roles there. With a podcast, obviously, again, they could be playing a role, but there's going to be a lot of realness there that you get through a podcast, a real genuine connection that you'll make with people. And I think that that's going to take off for sure. It's already starting, YouTube channels and this and that. But as soon as it becomes a little more easier and phones get more powerful and this software and that software, it's going to be made super simple. I mean, think about how difficult it would have been for an average person to start a podcast 10, 15 years ago. And now it's so simple. I can't imagine where it'll be in 5 years, especially with the demand growing. Everybody will have a podcast of their own. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I think it opens up a way of communicating, not only with people, but with yourself. I think that technology, mostly phones, have taken away that real connection, those real conversations. Nobody talks the way that they used to anymore. I think you're seeing that with the younger generation and a lot of the mental health issues that they're having. I think it comes from not knowing how to communicate properly. I know that a lot of people have phone call anxiety. And I mean, that's a thing that even I have. And it's because probably, I got my first cell phone when I was 13 and I grew up on MSN and I would just text and message people and I never had to talk. And now it's like, I'm not ready. I'm not prepared for it. And I think that would be a great way to bring it full circle. I think a lot of people would be able to address their own fears and worries and get rid of some of their anxiety, even if they were just talking with themselves in a room to a mic to put it out for other people, even if nobody's listening to it. Even if nobody ends up listening to the episodes that I do here, I know that this is going to be helpful and healthy for me just to be talking and getting these things out. And I think that, again, this is why everybody should try doing a podcast. Who knows what you're keeping in your head? Who knows what you're going to open up and what's going to come out and how that might help you and affect you going forward? I sure as hell don't know. I don't know what's going to come of this. I don't know what would come of yours. There's a lot of things I don't know. I don't know when Easter is. First, I think this is going to be a segment. Things I don't know. I definitely don't know when Easter is. Like, what is it? Like the 16th day after the third Wednesday of March or something. So that sometimes it's March and sometimes it's April. I don't know. I never know when Easter is until I start seeing like chocolate bunnies around. And then people start talking about the long weekend coming up. I'm like, why is there a long weekend coming up? And they're like, it's Easter. I'm like, how the hell do you know when Easter is? I feel like I swear Easter has happened in March and April. And if that's not true, then I don't know what was happening when I was growing up or what kind of game my mom was playing, but I've celebrated Easter in 2 different months. And I think that that's just ridiculous. Thanksgiving's hard enough. That's just like pick a day somewhere in the middle of the month and call that Thanksgiving. But Easter, man, for a holiday that seems like so important for what it is, for Jesus, waking up or dying and coming and waking up and doing his thing, I feel like it should be on a specific day. I'm not doing Christmas on random days. Doesn't change. Why does Easter change? I don't know when Easter is, man. What I do know is that I have a recommendation for you. And I said I'm going to do a movie this episode, but I already kind of recommended a lot of fucking things. Podcasting, float tank. None of those 2 don't actually count. We're not putting those under the header. I will do sub-recommendation for Sapiens. Great book. Interesting read. Lots to learn in there. 2 recommendations for the price of 1. That's the first one. The second one, movie. I'm going to go with The Green Mile. If you haven't seen The Green Mile, I think it's from the 90s. Tom Hanks. There's that big dude. He plays John Coffey. And Michael, it's like 3 names. He died, unfortunately. Michael, no. I'm going to get it. John Coffey. Big dude. Plays the role amazingly. Basically, Tom Hanks, he's like a prison guard or some sort of guard on death row somewhere in the States. And there's some characters in it for sure. Michael Clark Duncan. That's Michael Clark Douglas? Michael Clark Duncan is his name. He's amazing in the movie. But great movie, pretty deep, pretty sad, well worth the watch. That's the recommendation for movie for sure. The Green Mile. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I mean, most people have probably seen it. I should hope that you've all seen it. But if you haven't, or if you saw it a long time ago and haven't seen it since, go rewatch The Green Mile. There's a little mouse in there. It's super cute. Yeah, it's a good one. Another thing I know is that this episode is over. We did it. That's the end of episode 1. I don't think I got much else to say other than thank you. Rest in peace. I'll see you in the next one.
If you learn what all is, you can make